The following program has been rated GE by the Kenya Film Classification Board. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Hello viewer, welcome to Chungu cha Jamii. I'm your host Eunice Mugo. Today on the show I want us to talk about marriage in Africa and be able to unpack the dark side of it. What is the dark side of marriage? People say marriage is a happy thing. People say marriage is a good thing. What is your take on the same? What is the dark side of marriage in Africa? This is what I want us to talk about today. I have a guest with me who is going to help us to understand better the dark side of it and how to overcome that dark side and to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and also to continue on celebrating marriage. I will allow him to introduce himself. Welcome, guest.
Thank you very much. Hello, viewers. My name is James Kituzi, a personal and corporate development coach. Always a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, Mr. James.
Thank you.
Viewers, interact with us across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. So, Mr. James, today as our topic is marriages in Africa and the dark side of it, unpacking the dark side of the marriage. Just as the topic it is, what are we looking into today in regards to the dark side in marriage?
All right. It's an interesting topic. And for most of those who maybe saw it over social media, they're wondering, what is this dark thing about marriage?
Exactly.
And marriage is glorified as being ordained by God. Mm-hmm. So from the onset, so that we don't mislead anyone, marriage is a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Marriage is a holy institution. Mm-hmm. All theology teaches that marriage is ordained by God.
True.
So it's a godly thing to do. It's meant for good, for the good of mankind, both male and female. It's meant for procreation. It is how God continues the work of creation in society. So marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is a good thing. It's meant to be brilliant. It's meant to be bright. Even in stories and fairy tales, we are told when the boy or the man meets the woman, they lived happily ever after. So it's meant to have a good ending. It's meant to last, to offer companionship, to bring forth children, to partner. So marriage is a good thing in and by itself. However, marriage being ordained by God, marriage being a good thing as it is important to realize that it's an institution that is not managed by God. It's ordained by God, but not managed by God. It is managed by the couple. The couple who are human beings with all the weaknesses, all the wickedness of the mortal human heart. So human beings are wicked naturally. Human beings are weak naturally. And because of the human weakness aspect of it, that is when now we see the dark side of marriage, when now the human being who's weak cannot handle or cope with the pressures that come with being married to somebody else. And we talk about African marriages, and it's interesting that we're looking at it in African perspective, because traditionally African marriages were among the most lasting. Even today, traditional African marriages last more or last longer than what we'd call Western marriages. And that is because people were prepared for marriage. From childhood, a baby girl is taught how to take care of herself, and later how to take care of her man when she gets married. A man or a boy is taught how to be a provider, how to be a protector, so that they're prepared to get a girl and take care of a girl and a family. So people are prepared traditionally, which is what we don't see in modern society. And that's why modern marriages in Africa don't last. Modern marriages in Africa are faced with a lot of gender-based violence and many other ills that we see in society. Yes.
Interesting that you've been able to elaborate on the modern day marriage and the African tradition marriage. Now, the thin line between these two that you've been able to elaborate now, do we still have the traditional African girl child or boy child being raised at this generation and at this era to be able to have that blissful marriage when the time comes?
The truth of the matter is times have changed. A lot has changed in society. And these changes have been brought about by very many things or many aspects. One of them is the kind of education that we receive in Africa. It's more, especially colonial Africa and post-colonial Africa, where most of the syllabus, most of the curriculum is actually westernized curriculum, where now we talk about the emancipation of the girl child, which was a good thing from the onset. In other words, trying to empower the girl child to be at par with their male counterparts. It is not a bad thing. But however, it is very dangerous when that education is misinterpreted to mean that there should be competition between boys and girls, or competition between men and women, or the so-called gender equality. It is impossible, and I stand corrected, to achieve gender equality. But we can achieve gender equity, but not gender equality. And that has always been our opinion. So when it comes to the issue of marriage per se, the man remains the head of the family, the woman remains the helper in that union. At no point will they be equal. Now, when we teach them that they are equal, when we're creating room for competition in an institution that is supposed to have a hierarchy. Even at the workplace, there's a hierarchy. There's somebody, the CEO has their own job description, and then there are people under that, and everybody plays their role without necessarily feeling inferior to the other, because everybody has a part to play. And that's how marriage should work. That the man has a part to play, the woman has a very important part to play, and the two cannot be equal. They're just partners in this union where they should work together. So when we miseducate them and try to make them think and feel they're equal, then we're misleading them. We are actually creating battlegrounds in marriage, where now the man tries to speak and take his rightful role as the provider, as the protector, as the visionary, and as the leader. And the woman is feeling, no, I'm more educated than you. I earn more than you. So what is this thing about you being the boss in this house, being the head in this house? Why are you bossing me around? I'm educated as much as you, or even better than you. So what is this? I bring more on the table than you do bring. So what is this that you're telling me? So the other thing that has brought these changes is the westernization. The world is now a global village. So we have the internet, super fast internet, and therefore what happens in one part of the world affects what happens everywhere else. So culture has been spread, people have been assimilated, people have adopted different cultures, and so we don't have the traditional African culture, so to speak. It has some elements of westernization, some elements of being assimilated into other cultures, so that people now become global citizens, which is a good thing, so that you fit into the world, the rest of the world. But as you fit in, there are some key important things, moral values that the African culture held dear, which are slowly being, being eroded. So you find that people are now forgetting their roles, their responsibilities, and now trying to fit into a world where everything goes. We are now talking about gender ambiguity, where now we can't even just conclude that this is he or she. Now we have they, them. So eventually you'll find that the definition of a man is also watered down. The definition of who a woman is watered down. So when you don't have all these clear lines, even sustaining a marriage relationship becomes difficult, because you can no longer ask who wears the pants in the house. All right? Everybody wears the pants. So who's the head and who's the helper?
Good question. Who's the head and who's the helper? Now, listening to you, a lot of things are just coming into my mind, and I'm like, you've said that the westernized upbringing and culture has taken over the African traditional that we are in the first place. Now, looking back, when it comes to the girl empowerment, we all agree it's a good thing. And mostly when you're talking about this, you also hear that the boy child has been forgotten so much. But regardless to that, and what we are seeing in our marriages today that is making it to be dark and ugly is the equality that we are talking about. That you're saying that they're never going to be equal, but they're going to be equity.
Yes.
Now, what is the difference between equality and equity? One. Then two, in the empowerment that we've seen in the girl child, that it is so much embraced and the boy child being forgotten. Do we still have mentors in our society, in our African traditional setup, who are bringing up men of value and of character to be able to suit in that category that you've talked about, men who can take care of their family? Because for what we are seeing today in our society is, for lack of better word, lazy men who are not ready to go out there to fend for the family, to work for the good of the family. And mostly we are having the abuse that we are talking about also, the abuse of emotional abuse, looking down into women. Fine, you've been brought up knowing that you're the head of the family, but again, what are you doing to instill the value of this family, of the children that you're bringing up into this society?
Good question. And I'm glad that you said we are seeing a lot of lazy men. And I'll come to that in a minute. You're talking about equity versus equality. First of all, as human beings, I strongly believe that we are equal before God. So we are equal before God. So in the eyes of God, we are all human beings.
True.
Created in the image and likeness of God. True. That is as far as my knowledge of theology goes, that we are equal before God. When it comes to the institution of marriage, God is a God of order. So everything that God created, there was order about it. And God is not the author of confusion. So everything that God created has some sense of order. So if God ordained marriage as an institution that through which is going to procreate or create with man, then that institution must have some sense of order. Hence, the man is created and then supposed to love his wife. The woman is created and she's supposed to respect her husband. From the onset, even from that alone, we can see the difference now between equality and equity. In the sense that we are all equal before God. But when it comes to roles, roles are defined by society and also by God himself. That the man is supposed to be a lover in the relationship between a man and a woman. The woman is supposed to be a helper and a respecter in that union. So the gender roles are clearly defined on who should do what. In as much as we've had very many changes in society leading to this battle and struggle in the 90s, and we remember the Beijing conference, which was about empowering the woman and emancipating the woman from oppression or cultural oppressive tendencies. All these things were meant for good. However, I feel along the way we lost it. When we started thinking that you can actually empower the girl at the expense of the boy. And so what you talk about when you say now we have lazy men is as a result of an over-empowered lady meeting a man who's not prepared to handle her. So we prepared the lady, we prepared the girl child and told her what her role is and what her purpose is. And we've empowered her, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I feel the boy has been forgotten. Now, when you have a very empowered girl, very empowered lady, meeting a man who's not prepared to handle that, you are bound to have a lot of conflicts. Because the man in this relationship is feeling overwhelmed. There's so much expectation on me, yet I'm not ready to handle all that expectations. Or the man is thinking traditionally, in this traditional sense of who a provider is, who a protector is, who a man is. But the girl, her definition of what manhood is has changed over the years. And what the marking scheme for the girl is when you are looking for a partner is very different from her grandmother's marking scheme. The grandmother's marking scheme was very simple. Do they own land? Is there a place I can all call home? Does he have his small Manyata or his small hut, a Simba, where we can go and start a family? Can he provide? And before that grandmother, there was also the generation of, can he hunt? Is he strong enough? Can he protect us if we are invaded by enemies? So the marking scheme has changed over the years. And now we don't have ladies looking for men who are just masculine, because ladies go to the gym too, and they have developed their muscles, they are fit. We have ladies who are more fit than men, all right? So when you get this fit lady, she's not looking for somebody who's physically fit to protect her. She's looking for another definition of what protection is, all right? Her sense of security is different from what her grandmother used to think is security. So the ladies still want the same things their grandmothers wanted, only that they have heightened self-awareness such that their marking scheme is actually very different. The aspects are the same, but at a different level. The boy has remained there. And so when you put these two together, you have a disaster happening, where now the man feels, I'm the head of the house, and the woman asks, as the head, what do you see yourself in 10 years? And the man has no vision for 10 years. What are you planning? What can you do to provide? And the man has no job to provide.
Where did we go wrong? Because if you're saying all this, and I can be able to see it, the girl child was empowered. For us to voice out the empowerment of the girl child, for the girl to be empowered today, as we are talking about the Africanism, it's because in the African traditional setup, a woman was only fed for the kitchen and for the homestead. When our parents were growing up, when our grandparents were growing up, as you've rightfully said, the marking scheme was the land, a home, and basically that is where all his thinking, all her thinking was, because for her is to take care of the home, maybe if there is a land to go farming, take care of the kids, such as so forth and so on.
Yeah.
But now it has morphed, and now we are having the empowerment. The empowerment came about because of women being looked down upon. The women saw it best for them to be able to voice out and to come out from that shell or that cocoon of just being housewives, just being mothers, because they felt they have the potential, and that is why they came out. So where were the men left behind? Because from my own point of view, I feel that if you as the man see that me as your woman is looking out to be more empowered, you should like up your game automatically. If you are supporting me, you should be able to support yourself as well. Empower yourself, grow yourself for you to be able to accommodate me. But you won't say you're like molding me to be that person, to be that better woman in the society, and once I become that, you feel inferior. It doesn't make sense.
What you're saying is true. So there's need for the man to empower himself and to grow. And this personal growth in men will be provided by two scenarios or two things. Number one, the society itself has to empower the boy child. The society.
How
Just
so?
the same way we had affirmative action for the girl child, we need affirmative action for the boy child. Men who have grown and developed need to go back and reach for that boy and actually provide avenues to teach, empower, and equip the boy for his new responsibilities as a man in the modern society.
Allow me to interrupt you, Kidogo,
Yes.
and ask you this. Personally, I feel that the empowerment of a woman is so westernized.
True.
Because in the African traditional setup, the woman was not empowered like at all. The woman was so inferior, right? But the man was more empowered in the African traditional setting, where the man was so empowered, the conversation between a man and the clan and the community was so in the high. That is why women came out sorting for the empowerment in women. So where did the men not grow in regards to the same? Because if we women being educated and being empowered is westernized, and today we are talking about the Africanism and the African traditional setup, why did the men relax in their own territory?
You're saying the men relaxed.
So to speak.
They didn't actually relax, and that's what I was trying to put across, that we assumed the boy child is already powerful. The boy child is already empowered. The boy child is already sorted. So let's help the girl. And even men joined the bandwagon of affirmative action for the girl child. There are so many organizations that were set up by men to empower the girl child. Even to date, they still do run. So many forums where girl child is empowerment for the girl child in terms of access to education, access to job opportunities. We had affirmative action in terms of changing the constitution to have for example, the 2/3 gender rule. We involved women and we fought for them and their rights to be at the same table as men, which was a good thing. However, we assumed that the boy is already sorted and is already grown. But the boy who was sorted is today's grandfather. The boy who was sorted in the 80s is now today's grandfather, or is a generation that is actually dying slowly. The men we are seeing now, the Gen Zs that we are seeing, these are men who have grown up under millennial parents, who grew up under the wave of the empowerment of the girl child and the empowerment of women's rights and all those things. So the millennial parent is one who was now starting to embrace the idea that a man actually can go to the kitchen, a man can wash utensils, a man can take care of the baby as the woman goes out to work, because they were embracing that change. However, the men themselves had no avenue, for example, for personal growth and development as the women were provided with by society, either through legal framework or through educational institutions and many other forums that have come up to empower the girl child. Number two, the men themselves thought, or rather assumed, that they are okay. And so when this new breed of women come up and grow, and now the men are shocked, and then they realize, now we have a lady here whom we can't handle actually. We have a lady here who earns more than you do, so you can't say you'll control her financially. There's a lady here who is more educated than you and smarter than you, so you can't control her psychologically. So how else do you control a woman like that as a man? And so we've seen cases of violence grow over the years because we had a breed of men who felt embittered, a breed of men who felt challenged, and they didn't know how to face that challenge. And actually part of the reason why you'd find gender-based violence, especially perpetrated by some men over some women, was because the woman was challenging the position of the man. And the man thought, how else can I put you back to your position of being submissive to me? And so some men resorted to violence, which we don't advocate for, of course. But that is among the things that actually led to some of the violence that we saw in recent years, especially men against women. And women found ways to actually beat the man at their own game. So some women empowered themselves, if it's physically. Some women took karate classes. Now some women cannot be beaten by a man physically. You have to beat her in other ways. All right? And that's why I was saying it's time for men themselves, and assisted by society and supported by society, to actually empower themselves to handle the modern woman. Because the modern woman is empowered. She's self-aware. So she needs a man who can handle her. And that is lacking in society. So we have these young men who even the dress code is wanting in terms of their dressing. You can't tell the difference between a boy and a girl. You have men who don't know their role in the house. So they are busy there crying, babe, internet imekatika, busy with a remote there, trying to wait for you to come and provide bread on the table. So how can this man really take his rightful position in that family? And that's why there are so many women right now who are saying, I'd rather be single than take care of a man who has no vision and who's not adding value to me. All right? So we have all this happening. And even if the modern woman decides to get married, then she finds herself in a challenging, dark place like we are talking about in today's show, where now you are taking the responsibility of the man and taking the responsibility of the woman, and therefore they will feel overwhelmed.
I want to cut you short and go for a break.
Sure.
But when we come back, I want us to continue this conversation and look into, like you've rightly said, this person is at home doing remote control and whatever he is doing. But also, like you've mentioned, we need that empowerment in men. But how ready and willing are they? Because there's still the masculinity in them. The Africanism in them. Is it allowing them to go in that direction? Or do we still have to fight also in regards to the same? Viewer, I hope you're learning as much as I am. Interact with us across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. We'll be back shortly.